The studio lights were bright, almost too bright. Jason Statham, 57 years old, sat on the leather chair, his hands resting calmly on his knees. He had been on many shows before, but something about today felt different. Across from him, Sarah Collins, the well-known talk show host, adjusted her earpiece. She had a reputation for pushing her guests to their limits, hoping for big headlines. As the cameras rolled, Sarah smiled wide, but her eyes were sharp. She leaned in and asked, "Jason, you've played so many tough guys, but let's be honest. Off-screen, are you just acting brave too?" The audience chuckled nervously. Jason's eyes, calm like still water, did not flinch. He took a breath and answered softly, "Courage isn't acting, Sarah. It's living through things you pray never happen again." There was a strange hush in the room. Something in his voice sounded heavy, like he carried untold stories. But Sarah, sensing an opening, pushed harder. "Come on, Jason, you're just a tough guy in movies. In real life, you'd probably run away." The room went cold. Even the laughter died. Something had shifted, and nobody could ignore it. Jason's jaw tightened, but his voice stayed steady. "Sarah, do you know what it's like to stand at your mother's hospital bed, watching the machines slow down, knowing you can't do anything to save her?" The audience froze. Jason never spoke about his private life, but here he was in front of millions, peeling back the armor. He continued, "My mom, Eileen, God rest her soul, raised me with strength and kindness. She used to say, 'Son, a real man fights battles that no one sees.'" Sarah's confident smile faded just a little. Her cue cards trembled in her hands. She wasn't expecting this. Jason's voice softened even more, yet it cut deeper than any action scene. "When she passed, I promised myself I would never run from life, no matter how hard it hits." The studio was silent. You could hear the soft hum of the lights overhead. A few people in the front row blinked back tears. They saw past the action star, past the fame, and into the soul of a son who loved his mother deeply. But Sarah, not yet finished, cleared her throat and pushed on. "Still," she said, "all that doesn't make you a hero in real life." Jason's eyes glistened, but no tears fell. He stared at Sarah for a long moment, the silence heavy between them. Then, slowly, he spoke. "You think being a hero means explosions and car chases?" "No," he said, his voice rough yet tender. "Being a hero is holding your father's hand when he forgets your name." Gasps filled the room. A few audience members covered their mouths, eyes wide with sorrow. Jason's father, Barry Statham, now in his late 80s, battles dementia. Jason has kept it private for years, protecting his father's dignity, until now. "My dad, a singer, a street performer, he taught me to stand tall," Jason continued, his voice cracking. "Now he looks at me like a stranger, and I smile. I smile because I remember for both of us." Tears welled in the eyes of older viewers in the audience, those who knew too well the pain of watching loved ones fade away slowly. Even Sarah's hard shell began to crack. Her lips parted as if to speak, but no words came. Jason leaned in gently and finished, "Sarah, I live every day facing things tougher than any villain on screen." The weight of his truth silenced the entire studio. Jason's gaze softened, drifting away as if seeing a picture in his mind. The bright lights of the studio faded for him, replaced by memories of his childhood in Sydenham, London. "My father," Jason began, his voice gentle yet filled with weight, "used to sing in the streets when times were hard. He'd sing not for money, but to keep our spirits alive." He paused, swallowing hard. "There were nights when we had no heat in the house. Mom would wrap us in old blankets, and Dad would play his guitar to make us forget the cold." The audience was silent, many blinking back tears. Older viewers in the studio nodded slowly, feeling the weight of their own memories, their own cold nights, their own struggles. Jason continued, his eyes glistening. Now I visit my dad and I sing those same songs back to him. He doesn't always know it's me, but for a moment, he smiles. And in that moment, I know I've done something right. Even the cameras rolling steadily seemed to hum quieter, as if respecting the pain in his voice. Sarah's eyes dropped to her notes, but they were no longer of use. Sarah, trying to regain control of the moment, forced a smile. That's touching, Jason. But people say you built your career on violence in movies. Isn't that a bad example? Her question hung in the air like a blade. Jason inhaled deeply, his chest rising as he prepared to answer, not with anger, but with truth. You see, Sarah, Jason said softly, people mistake my roles for my real life, but let me tell you, real violence is seeing your loved ones suffer and not being able to stop it. He paused, letting the words sink deep. Movies? They're pretend. But the pain of seeing my mother take her last breath, that pain is real. No stunt double can take that hit for you. A quiet sob escaped from an older woman in the audience. Others dabbed their eyes with tissues. Jason's eyes, damp but steady, met the camera. If I act tough in films, it's because I know real toughness comes from surviving the losses life throws at you. The studio grew warmer with the heat of human truth. Jason wasn't just an action star now. He was a man speaking straight from his heart. Sarah's voice trembled slightly now. She had pushed, but Jason had given her more than she asked for. And it was real, painfully real. Jason, she said, her voice almost a whisper, how do you keep going? How do you carry all this weight and still smile for your fans? Jason looked at her, truly looked at her, as if seeing not the host, but the human being behind the makeup. You keep going, he answered quietly, because if you stop, you let the darkness win. He turned to the audience, his voice stronger but still warm. I have fans who tell me they watched my films when they lost their loved ones. They say my fight scenes gave them hope to fight their own battles. That's why I don't stop. I fight for them, for all of us. A few tears rolled down his cheek now, unchecked, honest. The audience was no longer watching a celebrity. They were watching a man stripped of fame, of scripts, standing bare in his truth. In that moment, even Sarah's hardened heart felt the crack, as silent tears welled in her eyes too. Jason took a slow breath, his chest rising under the studio lights. His voice, now lower, carried the heaviness of a man who had seen life's hard corners. My father, Barry, Jason said softly, used to tell me, life will break you, son, but don't let it break your kindness. The audience listened closely, some leaning forward in their seats. Tears glistened in older eyes as they remembered their own father's words. Jason's face tightened, as if holding back waves of pain. Now, my dad sits in his chair at home, staring out the window, lost in his own mind. I sit beside him, reading the same stories he once read to me. He swallowed hard, his voice cracking. Last week, for a moment, he looked at me and said, "You're my brave boy." Jason stopped, closing his eyes briefly to steady himself. That moment, he whispered, was worth more than any Hollywood award. The studio grew still. Even Sarah's face, once sharp and bold, now softened with silent respect. Jason opened his eyes, tears trailing down his cheek. Fame fades, but love stays. A few quiet sobs escaped from the crowd. Sarah, feeling her throat tighten, placed her cards down. Her voice, softer now, asked, Jason, do you ever feel alone? With all the fame, the cameras, does it ever feel empty? Jason's gaze met hers, honest and raw. Every single day, he replied without hesitation. He looked out over the audience, speaking as if to each person directly. I have bodyguards to protect me, security around my home, but no guard can protect your heart from loneliness. The words were simple, but they hit like thunder. People see the cars, the suits, the red carpets, Jason continued, but they don't see the quiet nights when I wonder if my parents, wherever they are proud of me. His eyes glistened, full of emotion. My mom used to say, Jason, don't chase the spotlight, chase peace. The crowd's eyes welled up. Some wiped their faces quietly, others simply let the tears fall. Sarah's voice caught in her throat. She had wanted drama for her show, but now she felt the weight of something far deeper. Jason ended the moment with a soft whisper. I miss her every day. The studio lights flickered gently, as if they too felt the pain. Jason reached into his suit pocket, pulling out a folded, worn piece of paper. His hands trembled slightly as he unfolded it. This, he said, holding it up, is a letter I wrote to my father, but I've never had the courage to give it to him. The audience watched, breathless. Jason's voice trembled as he read the first line. Dear Dad, if you ever forget my face, I want you to remember my heart. A few people in the crowd sobbed quietly. Jason continued, his voice breaking. You taught me to fight, but also to feel. You taught me to be strong, but not to be cold. He paused, looking down at the letter, as a tear splashed onto the page. I wrote this on a plane, flying back from a movie premiere. Jason explained, his voice soft. Thousands of fans cheered for me, but I felt like a lonely boy wishing for his father's hug. The audience felt every word like it was their own story. They saw not an action star, but a son longing for connection. Jason folded the letter carefully, like a fragile treasure. One day, he whispered, I hope he'll understand. Jason's eyes, still fixed on the folded letter, seemed far away. The studio lights reflected off the paper, but he wasn't looking at the lights. He was seeing a hospital room from years ago. My mom, Jason began softly, held my hand just hours before she left this world. The audience stilled. Even the air felt heavy. She could barely speak. Jason continued, his voice tight with pain. But she whispered, Promise me, Jason, you'll never let the world turn your heart cold. His breath trembled as he fought back tears. I promised her that day. I promised her with all my heart. He wiped his eyes, but the tears kept falling. She never cared about the fame. She didn't care about the money. She just wanted her son to stay kind, to stay human. The camera zoomed in slowly on Jason's tear-streaked face. No script, no acting, just raw, real emotion. I think of her every day, he said, looking at the ceiling as if speaking to her now. Mom, if you're watching, I'm still keeping that promise. The audience was in tears. The walls of celebrity had completely fallen away. Jason was just a son, keeping a mother's final wish. Sarah's voice, once full of boldness, now shook with regret. Her eyes filled with tears she no longer tried to hide. I didn't know, Jason, she whispered. I didn't know the weight you carry. Jason looked at her, not with anger, but with something even heavier. Understanding. You couldn't have known, he replied gently. Most people never ask. He let out a deep breath, his eyes soft. They see the action star, the stunts, the tough guy image, but no one asks about the nights I sit alone talking to my father, even when he no longer replies. The audience's hearts cracked open wider. Jason looked down at his hands, strong hands that had fought many battles on screen, but trembled with unseen pain. My father doesn't need a hero on the big screen, Jason said quietly. He needs his son to remind him of better days. He turned to Sarah, his voice barely above a whisper. "We all fight battles no one sees." Sarah's lips quivered. Her planned questions were forgotten, her notes useless. She wiped her eyes, unable to speak. The entire studio, watching Jason's truth unfold, felt the depth of his silent apology to life itself. The room felt like time had stopped. Not a cough, not a whisper, just the heavy sound of hearts beating. Jason drew a deep breath and placed the folded letter on the table between him and Sarah. "For every person watching," he said, looking straight into the camera, "who's lost someone they loved, this letter is for you too." The audience, studio crew, even the host, they all leaned in, their eyes glistening. Jason's voice cracked as he continued. "If you still have your mother, call her. If your father still knows your name, hold his hand. Because one day, you'll wish you had one more moment." A tear rolled down Sarah's cheek. She didn't wipe it away. Jason paused, his lips trembling, then whispered, "Don't wait like I did." The room erupted, not with noise but with quiet sobs and heavy hearts. Older viewers in the crowd wiped their faces, feeling their own memories of loss and love rise to the surface. For a brief moment, it no longer felt like a talk show. It felt like a family, sitting together in shared pain and understanding. And it was Jason, the action star, who had brought them all together. Jason took a shaky breath, his eyes clouded with unshed tears. His voice lowered, almost like a quiet prayer. "Every night," he began, "before I sleep, I close my eyes and imagine my parents young again." The audience listened, their hearts tightening in their chests. "I see my mom full of energy dancing in our small kitchen. I see my dad playing his guitar with a smile that could light up the whole room." Jason's lips quivered, but he kept going. "I imagine telling them, 'You did good. You raised a son who never forgot where he came from.'" Silence filled the studio, so complete you could hear the sound of someone softly weeping in the front row. Jason swallowed hard. "I pray, even though I'm not a perfect man, that they feel proud of me, wherever they are." He glanced at Sarah, who could no longer hold back her tears. She nodded, wordless. Jason's eyes, still glistening, turned toward the camera. "For everyone watching," he said, his voice trembling, "remember the simple days, the days of love and laughter, because they are the treasures we carry to the very end." He closed his eyes for a moment, as if seeing them again. As Jason opened his eyes, the studio seemed warmer, almost like a home. Sarah, wiping her cheeks, found her voice. "Jason, why have you never shared this before?" Jason looked at her with deep honesty. "Because the world expects strength from me, not tears." He smiled softly, a sad smile. "But real strength is not hiding our tears, it's letting them fall." The audience felt a powerful wave of emotion. Older viewers especially felt a connection to their lost loved ones, to moments they wished they could relive. Jason continued, "I thought people only wanted to see the tough guy, but maybe they need to see the truth too." He reached for the letter once more, holding it like it was the most precious thing in the world. "I wanted this moment to matter," Jason said, his voice thick with emotion. "Not for ratings, not for fame, but because if just one person watching today forgives someone or tells their family they love them, then this is worth everything." The audience, once quiet, began softly clapping, not out of habit, but out of pure, deep respect. Sarah's eyes glowed with gratitude. She too had been changed. Jason looked around the studio, his gaze landing on the older members of the audience. He saw a man clutching a handkerchief, eyes wet with tears. He saw a woman holding an old photograph close to her chest. His voice softened even more. "I see you," he said gently. "I see your pain. I see your memories, and I carry them with you. His words wrapped around the room like a warm blanket. I know what it feels like to wish for just one more day, Jason continued, his eyes shimmering. One more hug, one more laugh, one more chance to say, I love you. He paused, breathing deeply. Fame cannot fill that emptiness, he said. No award, no film, no applause. Only love can. A soft sniffle escaped from Sarah as she placed a trembling hand over her heart. Jason looked straight into the camera lens, speaking not to the millions watching, but to each soul, as if face to face. Please, he whispered, don't wait until it's too late. His words felt like a personal message to every viewer. Tears ran freely down faces both in the studio and surely at home. The talk show had become something far greater than anyone expected. Jason's fingers brushed over the folded letter again. His eyes, full of quiet storms, looked to the crowd. I've traveled the world, Jason said softly. I've seen places I once only dreamed of. But there's one journey I never made. He paused, the weight of his words pulling heavy in the air. I never got to tell my mom how much I owed her. I thought there would always be time. But time, Jason's voice broke, is a thief. The crowd felt his pain like it was their own. In the front row, an elderly woman clutched her chest, tears running freely. Jason swallowed his sorrow. I thought after one more film, I'd have time. After one more trip, I'd sit with her, just the two of us, and say, Mom, I'm not the man the world thinks I am. I'm your boy, and I miss your voice every day. His voice trembled, but he forced himself to finish. But the chance never came. Silence filled the studio. Even Sarah wiped her face with the back of her hand, no longer caring about the cameras. Jason looked down, whispering, Please, don't wait like I did. Jason slowly unfolded the letter, his hands shaking slightly. I wasn't going to do this, he admitted, his eyes shining. But maybe, just maybe, someone here needs to hear it. He cleared his throat and began to read. Dear Mom and Dad, if you can hear me, know that every step I take is because you taught me how to walk bravely through life. The words were simple, but they landed heavily in every heart. Mom, you taught me kindness. Dad, you taught me courage. But I forgot to tell you, you taught me love. A soft sob came from the audience. People clutched tissues to their faces. Some held each other's hands tightly, sharing in Jason's pain. Jason's voice cracked as he continued. Every role I play, every film I make, it's for you. It's my way of saying thank you for believing in a boy from South London. He folded the letter once more, pressing it to his heart. I carry you both with me, he said, closing his eyes, always. As Jason opened his eyes, they were filled with a quiet strength. Not the strength of a fighter, but the strength of a son who loved deeply. The studio, once loud with excitement, now felt like a sacred space. Jason stood slowly, letter in hand, and faced the audience fully. I thought this would be just another interview, he said gently. But it's more. It's a goodbye, and it's a hello. The camera zoomed in as he smiled, though his eyes still held tears. A goodbye to regrets, he said, his voice strong now. And a hello to living with love. Sarah rose from her seat, wiping her tears openly. She reached out, not as a host, but as a human, and lightly touched Jason's arm. Thank you, she whispered. Jason looked into the camera one final time. To everyone watching, call your family today. Visit your parents if you can. Forgive, love, and hold each moment close. The audience, filled with older viewers, many remembering their own lost chances, rose to their feet in applause. Not a loud cheer, but a soft, respectful standing ovation. Jason's final words lingered. Don't let the best words you have stay inside you. Say them while you still have the chance. The screen slowly faded to black, but the tears in people's eyes remained. If this story touched your heart, please take a moment to like this video. Your like is not just a click, it's a way of saying you carry these memories with you too. Leave a comment below and share your own story of love, loss, or a message you wish you had shared with someone dear. I will read every single one. And if you want to join this family of heartfelt stories and moments that matter, subscribe to this channel. Let's keep sharing.